In this video, I want to talk to you about starting a photography business in 2025. So if you're like a lot of people out there, you're getting your first camera and you're excited about starting a photography business. Maybe photography has been a hobby of yours for quite some time, and now you're ready to take that craft or that hobby and you're ready to monetize it. So these are some of the things that I think you should do in 2025 to make sure you can hit the ground running and not see any loss of growth. So the first thing that I would like to suggest to you is to find something you like to do. Photography, it's a very broad medium that you can use to create things on. There's different types of photography, whether it be wedding photography or baby photography or school photography, nature photography, landscape photography, wildlife photography. There's so many different types of photography that you can provide out there. And you want to consider whenever you're starting your company, what type of company do you want to build? Do you want to build a type of company that is 100% service based? So you're going out and finding clients and then you're taking those clients and serving them? Or do you want to be more of a product type business to where you're going out, you're doing what you love, you're taking photos and then you're going to place them somewhere, whether it be a gallery or a online gallery, maybe it's an in-person gallery, or is it a website somewhere where people can go and see the work and then they can buy the work? So that's something you want to consider when you start building your brand and your business. I think either one works. If you are a photographer who loves to do landscapes and wildlife, then obviously it's going to be a little bit harder to get a landscape or an animal to pay you. Could there be other avenues to do that? Sure. You could go to a zoo and find like a zookeeper and ask them, hey, would you like professional images of your animals so people can see what's in your exhibits? Or if you're a landscape photographer, maybe there's someone who owns a bunch of land and they want you to take some photos of it to have for their family. In both instances, I can say that they work from experience. I have went to a zoo and taken photos of animals, not for money. I've done it and used it as content to give to my kids' school so they could talk about a recap of a field trip. You see, it's that simple to find ways to monetize or ways to give people value with your craft by saying, hey, I love to photograph animals. Boom, I go to the zoo with my kid on a field trip, take pictures of some of the animals, send it to the teacher, she writes a newsletter, she sends it out to the parents are super happy because they actually got to see what the kids saw that day, the parents who couldn't come. So you can see how just that easy, as a nature photographer or a wildlife photographer, I'm able to create value for other people and take those photos. As far as the other option to where I was shooting landscapes, I had a family reach out to me. They were a customer of mine for many, many years in the portrait realm. And they were telling me about a family home that they had in Mississippi, and we live in Louisiana. And this was the place that they would travel and go have like family reunions at, and just had a big lake, and this was just like the central theme of the family. And they asked me to go out to take photos of the home because they were about to do some renovations of it, and they wanted to remember what it looked like before they did something new. So I drove out to Mississippi. It was I drove up to Alexandria, and then it's kind of Nacogdoches or something, not Nacogdoches, kind of just on the border of central Louisiana and Mississippi. I can't remember the exact town, but when I got there, I stayed in Louisiana, and then we drove across the bridge in the morning, me and the kids, just so we could kind of see where it was. Actually, that was the night before we drove across the bridge, so I can make sure I knew where the house was at. And then next morning, I woke up around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I drove the little 20-minute drive to the home. I had my little drone out there, and then I had my camera, and what I did was I took just photos of sunrise at their family land. So I was literally doing landscape shots. I did a couple of videos. They didn't need video, but I thought it might be nice to have some videos in the event that they ever needed videos for something. I'm pretty sure I took a few videos, and there was birds coming on the lake and things like that. So I did all that whole shoot for that family, and then they paid me a commission because I produced them a wall portrait, and it was I want to say it was a 30 by 40 wall portrait, and I did like a texture on it, and I had Miller's printed out, which was awesome, and I had Evolve do Evolve edits. I had them do a signature edit on it, and they made it look real Thomas King K style. And they had a family frame that they gave me to put the print in, so we had to get all the sizing correct. It was a custom front. It was a custom print, and that was one time when I did landscape photography. So just because you're not taking photos of people or sports or weddings or anything like that, it doesn't mean you can't still have a sustainable business model. Now, if I could rewind time all over, I would probably go more towards a product type style photography, because essentially what you're doing is you're building an inventory, right? If you go off to Africa and you take photos of elephants and zebras that could be put into doctors, lawyers, judges, chambers, like these are photos that they can hang up if they're into that type of thing. So whenever you're shooting that type of product style photography, everything you photograph literally becomes a SKU number that you can have on your shelf indefinitely. And you can do it by theme, you can do it by collection, you can have like spring art walks around your neighborhood or any type of art show. You can bring your prints in and you can sell them over and over again. So once you sell the image, it still has value. And then what I notice a lot of great product photographers or great wildlife and nature photographers, what they do is they'll print it only out a specific amount of time. So let's say they have this amazing shot of a zebra or an elephant, and they're like, hey, I'm only gonna make 10 copies of this with this edit. And they only make 10. And then they auction off, maybe they send one to an auction, maybe they send one to a gallery, and then that piece sits there until they sell it. The auction house raises the price of it and takes a commission, and the photographer gets a commission. That is the way that you build a sustainable business with product and landscape. Now, if you're a portrait photographer or a service photographer that's serving other people or businesses, this is kind of going to be more of like a everyday grind, everyday go after, find new customers, market, find more people, close sales, go find more leads. It's going to be one of those type of photographies. Now, there's nothing wrong with this type of photography. You just have to be ready. You get paid a lot faster in this style of business, but it's also way more competitive. And don't get me wrong, landscape and wildlife is very competitive as well. It's actually super competitive, but the barrier to entry for that type of photography is just so high, because the lenses and the camera equipment that you need to make some of those pieces that you can sell over and over again is in the tens of thousands and up to attain that equipment. Now, for portrait photographers and event photographers, you can get in for, and sometimes even just a couple $100 if you're buying things that are already used, or you're buying things that people are just trying to get rid of. So you can get in really easy. So that makes this industry of service photography and portrait photography just very, very, very competitive and very oversaturated in most markets. Now, what you want to consider is whenever you're getting into portrait photography, no matter what type of photography it is, just photography of people in general, specialize in something when you start. Maybe you enjoy athletes, you can do sports photography, not necessarily action, but just sports portraits photography. Or maybe you don't like to talk to people and you just like to capture a scene, then maybe sports action photography could be something for you. And then there's also, you can consider doing things like headshots, where you're actually working one-on-one with somebody and you're helping them create an image that has value so they can sell their brand to other people. So in that instance, your photography, portrait photography, is going to be worth more than if it's just a sentimental type family photo. So those are things you want to consider if you're going to go that route. Now, if you want to go the route of, let's say, a wedding photographer, this is a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Obviously, the wedding industry is very, very inflated with prices because this is a one-time thing. This is a very, very deep emotional moment. And anytime you're photographing something with deep emotional meaning, clients tend to spend more money when they are having to have their emotions in play, if that makes sense. I think that's a big reason why I ended up in the senior photography realm, is because I understood that this was the last year that the parents had with their student. This was the year where they were the most impressionable. Most of the times, like students, they're ready to take on the world. They have all the momentum. They're about to transition into adulthood. And I felt like the Lord had placed me in that moment to just kind of be a guide for some of these students and also to be a person who can just kind of model and example what it's like to transition into adult life. And I would say it's been a huge blessing being able to do that. But portrait photography, those are just a couple of options of portrait photography. And then also you might want to also consider weddings. So we talked about weddings, we talked about headshots, we talked about seniors, we talked about sports. And then there's also what I would call product photography. It's where you link up our business photography, event photography, things like that. Commercial photography is what it would all fall under. So whether you have events for businesses, products, lifestyle brands, things like that, those would be commercial photography. And the commercial photography industry is very, 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 I lost my train of thought, sorry. It's very competitive as well. That's what I'm trying to say. Because there's a lot of people competing in this space. And there's lots of companies popping up, and there's lots of companies going under. So with that, the risk tolerance in a commercial photography business is very high. A lot of times, like I've shot several different commercial type events and product shots. I've tried it all. And almost being a photographer for 15 years, that's not much photography I have not tried or have not had the opportunity to complete. I say try, I just pretty much did it. Like I've done pretty much every facet of photography outside of some questionable things that were against my morals. Obviously I don't do boudoir photography. I didn't even mention it in portrait photography, but that is a type of photography, and it is also a very emotional type of photography, but which yields itself to a higher spin. But I don't do boudoir photography, nor do I have the desire, because it's not something that lines up with me morally. I don't see it as anything like that's wrong, but it's not right for me. I would not suggest it. If you're a male, young, you would need to put a lot of guardrails in place to make sure you can protect yourself if you're going to go that route. Now, back to this commercial photography, because that's what we're really focusing on right now. Commercial photography has a lot of risk tolerance. A lot of times you're getting paid 60 days, 30, 60, 90 days later on the bigger jobs, and then you have to front that money to do the shoot. So if you have assistants, if you have to rent gear, if you have to get special lighting, if you need like just permits for locations, think that you're gonna have to pay this out the front end. And anybody in business will tell you there's times where companies go under before they can pay everybody. It just happens. Like, that's the nature of the business. Not everybody you're working with is batting 1,000. Some people are trying to market, some people are trying to get content out there to save their business, and they're looking at you as a savior. So if you don't protect yourself, then it makes it hard. Now, a lot of times what you can do with commercial clients is you can say, hey, if you pay this much down, then I'll give you this much discount, and just adjust your prices accordingly to make sure that you can still win the bid for the commercial photography, but also still protect yourself a little bit in the short game. And it's as simple as saying, I need this much deposit down, and I need this much once the job's complete, and then once I deliver it, you have this much time to pay the rest. You know, so you want to make sure you also have contracts if you're working in any type of commercial photography, wedding photography, portrait photography, even in your in any type of photography you do, you want to have some contracts and some guardrails in place to protect yourself. You also want to make sure you have insurance, which transitions me to my next step, my next point. If you're starting out a photography business, there's 3 things that you're definitely going to need, and every business is the same for this. You're going to need an accountant, one that can specialize in taxes and give you strategy to make sure you're good. You're also going to want to make sure you have an insurance agent, and then you also want to make sure you have an attorney. And I'm going to add a bonus one. You definitely want to be a member of PPA, because they're going to help educate you and get you rolling in the right way. When I first started out my photography business, PPA was amazing. It had so many resources, so many things that helped me. This video is not brought to you by PPA, but dang, they know how to get you off on the right start. And it was, at the time when I started, it was less than $400 a year to have a membership. So it was kind of like a no-brainer. And inside that membership, I ended up getting like $15,000 worth of equipment insurance, and I could add general liability insurance, which we ended up needing because we're doing commercial photography with schools and universities. So we had to have like a 1 million, 2 million aggregate type GUI policy. I'm not going to go too much into that, but if you're going to be a commercial or any type of photographer, you need that type of insurance. So if people try to come after you, your business has a safeguard right there. You also want to set yourself up either an LLC or an S Corp. That would be something you'll talk to your accountant or your business mentor, if you have one, to help you set up the way you're going to format your business. But those 3 people plus PPA are the 4 things you need to stay on track to find success. Your accountant is going to be a straight shooter. They're going to tell you straight up, you made money, you lost money. And then you're not going to know. They're going to tell you made money, and you're going to look in your account and you're going to be like, what do you mean I made money? And because you're going to, when you first started, you have so much expenses, and they're going to be like, well, you made a profit. And they're not going to understand. You're not going to understand why there's no money in your account, but you made a profit. And it's kind of frustrating at first. So I recently read a book called Profit First, and it was very, very, very helpful. It talked about setting up 5 accounts. So whenever you get with your accountant, tell them you're setting up 5 accounts. And the 5 accounts that you want to set up that I learned from this book were your tax account, your profit account, your owner's compensation. Well, these are accounts I have. Payroll, and then, let's see. Did I say them all? I don't think I said them all. So first you have profit, then expenses, then owner's compensation. Did I say taxes? And then maybe there's 4. I just have a 5th one because I need a 5th one for payroll. I feel like he said 5. I'll make sure and put in the comments which accounts that you need, but for sure you need a profit account, profit account, tax holding account, owner's compensation, and expenses. Those are the 4 that everybody should start out with. And then you take a percentage of each thing. So whenever you bill somebody or you do a bid, make sure you put it in a little spreadsheet, and all those percentages, when you take them out, that it makes sense. Because if you charge somebody, let's say $1,000 for a shoot, you're not going to keep $1,000. You're going to keep whatever the profit of that shoot is for yourself. Not necessarily the profit, but the owner's compensation portion. The profit is something that's for the business. I will make another video going over that Profit First book because there's a lot of stuff to unpack there on that. And then I want to transition with our attorney. You want to make sure you have someone who can help you in the event that you have something that happens legal. Your attorney can help you set up your LLC or your S Corp, and there's a ton of free options online to help you set this up as well. If you don't want to pay an attorney, there's LegalZoom. There's all kind of stuff online. The Law Tog. There's a bunch of resources. When I set up my LLC, we actually just did it ourselves. There was a local incubator here in town, and they kind of gave us all the steps to set it up. We went to the bank to set up our business account. Our banker actually helped us set up the account and made sure everything looked good. In Louisiana, we have to register every year with the Secretary of State. So if you have something like that, you want to make sure you register with that, because if you're not registered, you could possibly not be able to get some of these commercial jobs if you decide to go that route. And an attorney can help you with contracts, can help you with setting up an LLC or an S Corp if you don't feel comfortable doing that. And they also can help you with, if somebody tries to come after you later. Obviously, PPA is going to have some support for anything that would happen like that, whether you got in some trouble or you had a client come after you. PPA has some supports in place with that, with contracts and stuff like that. But I would recommend any contracts or anything you get off of the PPA workshop website, you want to make sure and just let an attorney look over and make sure they're ironclad for your state, because every state's going to be a little different. And then your insurance agent. Your insurance agent is going to be your best friend because he's going to make sure that you're protected. And a lot of times they're really connected with other businesses. So insurance agents are amazing referral sources if you can build a relationship with them, because they work with so many businesses. So if you're in the commercial world or even like the portrait world, everybody's got to have car insurance. I know at least in Louisiana, everybody's got to have homeowners insurance. If you find the right agent, they're going to be locked in key with a lot of businesses and a lot of people. So those insurance agents need to be a really close friend of yours, and it needs to be someone that you can develop a relationship. Now, my insurance agent, he's actually sent me some business before. I've actually photographed his family, and he's introduced me to people. He's an awesome guy. Shout out to Kelly Lee. He's always been there for us, and I thank him for always making sure that I'm properly covered in the event that something goes down. So just a quick recap: you want to have your attorney, you want to have your accountant, and your insurance agent. And that's, like I said, the bonus is PPA. PPA is very important. If you can't get all three of those, make sure you at least got PPA, because they're going to get you through most of that stuff securely. You got to have your accountant. That's like, the accountant is you have to have that. You're going to need it. Trust me. You don't want to go without accountant. And the third tip I would say is learn how to show up consistently and market. When you're first starting out your business, you probably have some work because you've done it as a hobby for quite some time. You need to be showcasing fresh work like 3 times a week. We live in a society today where people are goldfish attention span. Like, reels are 7 seconds, 5 seconds, and they're clicking off. So you need to come up often and regularly. So you need to be out there shooting, whether unpaid or paid, every day. Not every day, but at least 3 times a week, posting content. So you figure out how many shoots you need to do a week to make sure you can post 3 times a week, and then go from there. And this is not something that you want to turn off. So think about it this way. Let's say this week you have 10 sessions, and you could run literally 10 posts that week. If you know next week you only have 1 or 2 sessions on the books, or you only have 1 or 2 opportunities to get out and photograph because you have a heavy workload at work, or you still have your other job and you're not able to do photography full time yet, what you want to make sure you can do is take that 10 pieces, those 10 shoots, and you want to spread them out over 3 weeks, because you got 3, 6, 9, and then a bonus day. So you can use those 10 shoots to give you 3.33 weeks of content, if that makes sense. So that's what you want to do. You want to spread it out as best as you can. If you feel like maybe you did a portrait session and the client was uber happy and excited, I like to prioritize those to go out earlier, because while the client is still excited and over the moon about their session, you can post their content a little bit quicker, and then it'll start to get some traction, and they'll share it, and everybody's super excited still about what happened. So they'll kind of move it out like a wildfire. And I say that recently because that's kind of what we did this last season. We had some weeks we had 16 shoots, some weeks we had 4 or 5 shoots a week. And what we did, because we're sports photographers, team sports photographers and school photographers, so what we did was we posted content very, very consistently over and over again each week. There were some weeks where we were posting 5 to 9 times a week, and then there were some weeks where we were only posting like 2 or 3. And for about 3-4 months, we did that consistently. And now everywhere I go, I hear coaches saying, "Man, you are the man. You are busy. You're doing everything." And I was talking to a coach this morning, and I was saying, "Coach, like I was going to pick up a check, and I was like, Coach, the only thing I did different this year is I actually put a camera on everywhere I went." And I was like, "It's literally like this every year." And he's like, "I didn't realize how much stuff you did." And I was like, looking back at it, I actually didn't realize how much stuff I did either. I just knew I was out there getting after it on the daily. And that's what people want to see. They want to see you often. They want to see you regularly. If they don't want to see you, there's a button. It's called unfollow. They don't have to follow you. But most of the people who follow you, they actually want to see your content. That's why they follow you. So the more content you can give them, the more they want to see. And like I said, if they don't want to see it, they can just click unfollow or unsubscribe. It's very, very simple. So you just keep putting it out there and let people enjoy it. Because it's kind of like whenever you start watching a really good TV show, right? You don't say, oh man, I wish they would stop making episodes, right? Nobody says that. You just want them to keep making episodes, and you want to tune in, you want to watch over and over and over. And then when the season ends, you're like, oh no, I wonder what's going to happen next season. And you're like, man, now I got to wait, 4 or 5 months to watch the next season. So that's the same thing you want to do with your content. You want to make content that people want to see daily, or however often at least 3 times a week, so they can connect with you and they can enjoy what you're doing and you can share with them. And I feel like in this day and age, these are the 3 things that you need to do to make sure you can run your photography business successfully. And if you're not doing these things, now you have a list and now you can go out and make it happen. If you're just getting started in photography, drop it in the comments, let me know. I'd love to connect with you. We have a community that you can check out. It's called the Tatami Academy. It's free to join, where we are a bunch of like-minded individuals and we go in and we help build each other up. So if you're interested in joining the Tatami Academy, just look into the comments and you can join the academy and you can connect with other people who are trying to start a photography business and people who have been doing photography for quite some time. Now this is a new community, so it's not that many people in here yet. I don't know how many people I'm gonna let it get to before we change it up, but as of right now, you can get in and enjoy it with us. So excited about the Tatami Academy, and I can't wait to see you there. All right, peace.